Welcome to my craft room and welcome to Yarn Church, where we talk about yarn and all of the yarny things like spinning and knitting. Today I have a podcast episode for you where I talk about all of the spinning and knitting I've been doing in the last couple of weeks and months, frankly. And I also have some ideas for what I want to do with this channel and want to get your feedback. Before we get started, I do have a confession to make. And that is that when I made my Everything I Knit in 2025 video, I accidentally left out 2 pairs of socks from that video. And I didn't notice it until I was watching my video after I uploaded it to YouTube and before I published it to YouTube. And I decided not to remake the video to add those sections because there's quite a bit of work that goes into a YouTube video between recording it and posting it or publishing it. So I didn't really want to go through all of that again, especially when there's a podcast episode coming up where I could talk about it. So I'm just gonna talk about it in this episode. And anyway, I've made so many things since the last podcast episode that it would be a really long episode if I actually talked about all of them, and you heard about all of them except for these in the Everything I Knit in 2025. So it's all good. So the first pair of socks is one that is on my feet now. So excuse me for a moment. I refer to these as my crab socks. So these are Chausettes Homard is the name of the pattern. These are by Corriedale. And they were knit in Sorella Yarns 80/20 nylon sock in the colorways Olay, Marché, and Normandy. So very, very French socks. And they're colorwork, they're stranded colorwork socks with duplicate stitched eyes and this twisted rib cuff. Aside from the colorwork and the twisted rib, I pretty much just did a vanilla heel flapping gusset sock. I bought the pattern for the colorwork chart. I wouldn't recommend this pattern if you've never knit a sock before, because I thought the description of how to do the heel flapping gusset and the toe and all of that, I thought that was maybe not great, but the cuff of the sock down to the heel flap was very easy to understand. I just had a hard time understanding how they wanted you to do the heel flapping gusset, and so I just did it the way I knew to do it. But aside from that, I knit it to pattern up, from here down to there, the end of the color work. This is my first pair of colorwork socks, and I knit my colorwork socks. I knit my socks. I knit my socks on magic loop, usually on a US 1 needle. On these, I knit on a US 1.5 needle, and I think that's they recommended going up the needle size because of the color work, although they do also have you increase, which you can kind of see where I increased there. They do have you increase a little bit before you go into the color work and then decrease back down afterwards. So they do kind of account for your color work tension being a little bit tighter that way. But I really struggled to get the magic loop, the tension right where the magic loop ends. I think I ended up doing okay on this one. I actually attempted this color work once before this and ended up ripping it out because I just really didn't like the way it looked. So this was kind of my second attempt. I did not keep my first attempt. Oh, actually I did keep my first attempt. I kept my first attempt, and I plan to use it as kind of a swatch and cut it, or I don't know, keep it as a souvenir. So yeah, pleased with how these socks turned out. However, one thing I am noticing, and I don't know if this is because I continued with the US 1.5 needle, and I think maybe because the gauge is a little looser, or it might be the yarn itself. It has felted a little bit down here. It's very, very fuzzy and felty, more so than any other socks that I own, including the hand spun ones. And for having 20% nylon, I would have expected these to hold up a lot better. The only thing I can think is either my tension is different and the looser tension is accounting for this, or maybe there's not quite enough twists in the yarn, or there's not as much twists in this yarn as my other sock yarns. But this was something I kind of am sad that I didn't get this in the year-end video because I did want to talk about that, because my book club cardigan also had a similar problem where it was a strong yarn. It was made out of strong material, which is the Icelandic wool, but because of the low twist in that yarn, it still didn't hold together and it still pills like crazy. And this pills like crazy, even though it has 20% nylon by weight in it. So I learned a lot about yarn construction in the last year from my knitting, oddly enough. You would think I'd learn it from my spinning, but I learned it from my knitting. And then the other pair of socks I want to talk about are the same pattern. This pattern comes with 3 colorwork motifs. It comes with a crab, it comes with a lobster, and it comes with a beach shack. And I haven't made the beach shack yet, but the other pair of socks is the lobster. And instead of doing the duplicate stitch on the eyes for this one, I put little black seed beads in as I was knitting, and I really love how this turned out with the seed beads. The other thing I love about this motif is that they have pearl bumps for the shell segments, and I just love the texture of this. I am also pretty pleased with how the tension is working out at the magic loop. You can definitely see where the magic loop was, but I do think my tension is better on these socks than the other socks, especially the places where it isn't the magic loop. My color work is better. I paid a lot more attention to color dominance in this one as well. This one actually turned out so well, I plan to put it in the state fair, which is why it looks so good, because I've never worn this, and I'm not going to wear it until after the state fair. So, but I have a whole pair of them, and they both look pretty good. All my other finished objects are skeins of yarn, and I didn't spin all of the singles for these yarns in the last few months. I actually spun a lot of these like over the last year, really. A lot of them, actually all of them but one, were spun on spindles, and they were all plied on my wheel. One of them was plied and spun on my wheel. But I had a little bit of a plying party with my friend Arlen. She invited me over to christen her she shed, and we spent 6 hours spinning together, and during that time all I did was ply. I plied all of the yarn off of all of the Turkish spindle cops. Actually, I didn't finish all of them, but I plied yarn off of my Turkish spindle cops the entire 6 hours, and so I have quite a bit of yarn to show for it. So let's go through it. So the first skein I'll show you is this 2-ply yarn. This is about 50 grams, so this is about half a braid of 100% Targhee from Greenwood Fiber Works, and this was dyed in the colorway October Sky. I purchased this at Oregon Flock and Fiber in October of 2024, and I spun this over multiple months on my Jenkins Dragonfly Turkish spindle, and then I applied it, a few weekends ago at my friend Arlen's house, and I applied this, of course, on my wheel. I'm calling this a fractal spin, even though I'm not quite sure that it's exactly a fractal, because I usually store my braids once I've broken them up for a planned spin. I will store each ply in its own bag just so I remember what I was going to do with it. But in this case, I didn't do that, and I thought, oh, I'll remember. I didn't remember, and so I kind of guessed. So I actually don't know if this is the way I originally intended to combine the colors or not, but either way, I think it works. It's still a beautiful yarn. I'm still going to use it and enjoy it. And yeah. The next skein is from the same braid. Anytime you do a fractal sort of spin, you end up with extra singles, unless you're very, very good or very, very lucky. And I had some extra singles, and so I just plied them on themselves. And I ended up having, the yarn was a little over plied. When your plied yarn has too much ply twist, you have a couple of options. One option that you have is to put it back through the wheel and remove some of the ply twist. The other option you have is to put it back on the wheel and add more ply twist, and then ply that yarn back on itself to make a cabled yarn. And that's what I did with this, is I spun the singles as with Z twist, which is twist to the right, and then I plied it with S twist, which is twist to the left. And then when I realized it was over plied, I added more S twist, and then I applied it back on itself with Z twist. And you come up with this cabled yarn that almost looks like the plies are knitted together. It's really cool yarn. Cabled yarn has several advantages. One is it is very stretchy. That's partially because this is Targhee, but it's even stretchier than the 2-ply Targhee. The other reason that you might want to make a cabled yarn is it's very strong. It resists abrasion because it's cabled and the singles are not as exposed to the abrasion, and so it resists pilling. So one thing though is that you may notice if I hold this up is that this skein is twisting on itself. And when you first take a skein of yarn off of the wheel and put it in a skein form like this is normal. But this yarn has been finished, so I wouldn't expect it to twist back on itself like this. When a yarn that's already been finished twists back on itself like this, it means it's not balanced. If you want to get a balanced yarn here, the same thing goes. I could do an 8-ply cabled yarn if I put more twist in, or I can take a little bit of this ply twist out. Or I don't know, you may not know that this is over plied, but the way you can tell how much, what direction to put the twist in is the skein is telling you what kind of twist it wants. So if you look at the twist here, you'll see that it's kind of going in an S shape. Do you see that? This is going in an S shape, which tells you that it wants S twist. If it were going the other way, it would be wanting Z twist. Or I guess I'm kind of going backwards for you. It would want Z twist. So I can balance this skein of yarn by putting it back on my wheel one last time and adding just a little bit of left-handed twist to it to take a little bit of that extra ply twist out. However, I'm not going to do that to this yarn because I'm going to knit with this yarn. And when you knit with yarn or do anything with yarn, you are doing something to the twist. So I'm going to do two things to this before it's in the finished object. I am going to wind it on a ball winder, and I'm going to knit with it continental style by pulling from the center of that center pull ball. Both of those actions, knitting continental puts a little bit of S twist into yarn, and pulling from the center of a center pull ball that's been wound up in the clockwise direction. Both of those things will cause the yarn to have a little bit more S twist. So I'm going to prioritize getting a balanced yarn in my finished object versus having a balanced yarn in this skein. But if you wanted to balance this skein, it would be pretty easy to do on the wheel. And I think given how elastic and strong this yarn is, I think I'm going to put it in the heel or toe of a pair of socks. See how this wears. And I may spin even more yarn like this with this construction to specifically for socks. My next finished object is this skein of yarn. Well, these are two skeins of yarn. This is about a lace weight 2-ply yarn that I spun on my chickadee Turkish spindle. In fact, I bought the chickadee to spin this yarn, and I wanted a lace weight yarn to make a Shetland style lace shawl, and I bought this fiber for the same purpose. This fiber is 3 different fibers blended together in equal parts. It's rambouillet, giant Himalayan stinging nettle, and Angora bunny, all blended together. And this is from Siren of the Skeins. She attends Black Sheep Gathering and Oregon Flock and Fiber. So if you go to either of those events during the year, feel free to check her out. She does a lot of blends, and they're all pretty good. I've only really tried this one, but I'm interested in a few other of her blends. And yeah, I'm enjoying the fluffiness of this, and it was very easy to spin, and but there was a lot of yardage to ply and a lot of yardage to wind up. So I have not measured the yardage yet, but I just know there's a lot based on how long it took me to wind it. Last but not least for the finished objects is Hilda. Hilda is the sheep that I bought the fleece of in 2024 at Black Sheep Gathering, and this is the first time I've processed a fleece from greasy off the sheep to finished yarn, and I do hope to make a sweater out of this. I do not yet know if I have enough yardage to make a sweater for myself just out of Hilda's fleece, but I would really like to know. And if I don't have enough for making a sweater just out of this, I'll probably do something with color work or stripes so that I can incorporate this as like a main color at least. Yeah, so this was spun entirely on Turkish spindles and then plied on my wheel. The story of this is I started hand carding this and into Rolex, and I really enjoyed the process of sampling it to the extent that I just kept spinning it on spindles over and over and over again until I had spun all of the fleece into singles on spindles. So I kind of unintentionally did my first sweater spin and my first fleece to sweater in spindles by accident. So yeah, it's soft, it's squishy. I will let you know if I have enough yardage. You'll see this again. Well, you'll see this again regardless, whether it's a sweater all on its own or a sweater with other yarn, but you will see this again because it's going to be a sweater for me. For the whips, I'm starting with spinning, and I have 2 spinning whips right now. The first you've seen before. It's this green Corriedale, which I call Corriedale from Hell. And I'll tell you why I call it Corriedale from Hell in a second. But this is intended to be my main color for my pressed flowers cardigan in the future. And I love the color. I bought this wool off of Etsy, and it was very inexpensive. But the problem is that the staple length is very inconsistent. So look at this. You can kind of see looking at this. I just pulled this out of the roving, or out of the comb top, and it kind of looks like a multi-coated fleece when you pull it out. This is what multi-coated fleeces look like when you pull a lock out, and it's because of the different staple lengths. So there's shorter staple lengths in the middle and there's longer staple lengths out here. So when you try to draft this, it drafts really unevenly, and so your yarn ends up very uneven unless you work really hard to even it out. So it's very frustrating to spin. That's why I call it Corriedale from Hell. To try to remedy this, what I've done is I've been spinning it staple length by staple length, and using the term staple length quite loosely. So I'll pull out a chunk and I'll fold it over my finger, and then I will spin from this little fold here. And so all of the individual strands of wool will be folded over within the yarn. And this is kind of known to help you draft fibers that have different staple lengths together, and it has made it a lot easier to spin, but it's still annoying because I have to spin this staple length by staple length rather than just holding a bunch of fiber in my hands and going and getting kind of in a flow state, which is what happens when I spin off of really well prepared wool. So this has been a little bit of a slog to get through. I think the yarn is still going to be nice to use. So in the end, I will have good yarn. I only have these 2 little pieces of the comb top left to spin. And the reason they're in 2 pieces is because psychologically, I need little chunks of this. So I've broken this up. I broke it up into 4 pieces. So there was double this when I started this last little bit, and I said, okay, every time I sit down at my wheel, I'm gonna spin 1 piece of this, and then I only have 4 spinning days or 4 spinning sessions, and then I'll be done. So now I only have 2 spinning sessions left, and then I'll be done. We'll see if it fits on this bobbin. If it doesn't, I'll just start a new bobbin, not a big deal. But yeah, hope to have this done pretty soon. Hopefully by the next time you talk to me, this will be done. My next whip is also a spinning project, and it's from a fleece that I bought in June of this year, or 2025, at Black Sheep Gathering. So I am affectionately calling this fleece, or this sheep, Oreo. The fleece didn't have a name, or the sheep didn't have a name on the bag or anything, but I'm calling the sheep Oreo because primarily it is this dark chocolate brown color, which I'll hold up one of the bats I've made. It is primarily this dark chocolate brown color, and then it also has bits of white in it. And so I've already washed it, clearly. I washed it back in October of this year, kind of at the last minute. And I have been carding it bit by bit. So I've just been coming in here once every couple days and making a single bat, or just, you know, even if I'm just brushing out a few locks and then putting them on the drum carder, I figure every little bit will count, and bit by bit I will get it to the point where I have enough to spin up a sweater or something. My plan is to spin up all the darkest color of the fleece, and then to spin up the kind of pieces that were mixed between white and black, kind of the grayer pieces and things like that. Blend all of those together as much as I can and blend that into some bats. And then lastly, I'll clean out my drum carder really, really well, and then I will do the white. So I have some samples here of yarn that I've already spun from the fleece, and I've spun this on spindles. I don't think I'll spin this whole fleece on spindles, but who knows. I'm mostly sample with spindles because it's just handy. You don't have to get your wheel out, and you can just very quickly make a small amount of yarn. So this is the white color from the fleece, and then this is what the dark color looks like once it's spun up. This is a 2-ply. I think I might have changed my mind now. I think I might, instead of 2-ply, I think I might make a 3-ply yarn instead, but we'll see. And this fleece, I meant to say this fleece is a cross. It's a rambouillet Romney cross sheep. So a Romney sheep is a long wool, and rambouillet is a fine wool with a significantly shorter staple length. And so what you get when you do a crossbreed is you get a little bit of the characteristics of both. And so this is I would say this is a medium wool. This was entered into the medium wool category of Black Sheep Gathering fleece judging. It has a long staple length, but it has a pretty fine micron count for Romney. And it's a long staple length for rambouillet, and it had a ton of crimp in it, which I love. I love a really crimpy staple, and it is very crimpy. This won 3rd place in the Black Sheep Gathering fleece show for the medium wool multicolored category, and I also purchased the 1st place fleece. And the main difference between these two fleeces, other than the color, the 1st place fleece was gray and black, and this is black and white. The 1st place fleece had a lot more consistent staple length, and this has a pretty inconsistent staple length. And you may think, oh, you're not gonna like this because you didn't like this guy. And when you hand process your own fleece, you get to divide the staple lengths up. And so when you are drafting, you can draft a piece of roving or a piece of bat that all has one consistent staple length in it, because you can select what you put in the bats. If it's already carded or combed into top, you really can't. So anyway, I have already spun little pieces of bat, and it has been a joy to spin. So I'm really looking forward to when I have carded enough of this to start spinning. And you're gonna see this over and over again in these podcast episodes, because this is going to be quite a long project. In fact, you're probably also going to get a hint of where I am in the carding process, because my drum carder kind of lives in the shelf behind me. So you can maybe tell from the color that is on it where I'm at. It's black, so it's on the dark brown still, and it's going to be there for a while because this fleece is primarily dark brown with kind of white spots. My other 2 whips are both knitting whips. The first one I started knitting when I was doing the swatch for the other knitting project I'm going to show you. So this is the Nebula sweater by Andrea Mowry, and I got pretty far in it. I am about ready to separate for sleeves. In fact, I think I might have actually separated for sleeves already here. I think that might be why some of these stitches are held. So I'm knitting on this. This is a high-low sweater. It's a little bit lower in the back than in the front, and it is knit from a fluffy DK weight alpaca yarn. The yarn here is Birdie DK by Diamond Lane, and it is in the colorway Waverly. This is 90% alpaca and 10% silk. It's as soft as it sounds and super fluffy, and it's been a very enjoyable knit. And I got this far just knitting the swatches on my other project, so I think this will finish pretty quick once I'm done with this other project, which I'm pretty much knitting monogamously so that I can get it done. So the project I've been spending most of my time on is the Orav Cardigan by Alex Bird. And this is it. This is mine. It's attached to the yarn. This is the sleeve. This is the back. There's the front. Okay. So you are looking at the front, and I'm currently knitting the right sleeve cap. This is an all over cable cardigan that is steeked for the front of the cardigan and as well as the armholes. So that's why it looks a little bit strange, because there are things that will be separated that are today knit together. So I made this out of Tumalo Fiber Starlight Sport, which is a 40% Cormo, 40% BFL, 20% mulberry silk base. And this is Starlight Sport undertone. So they have an undertone and an overtone version of this. This is the undertone, and the colorway is candy apple, but this is dyed over gray. So the undertone is dyed over gray and the overtone is dyed over white. So this has a little bit of a gray undertone, and then the red overtone on it. And I've been really enjoying knitting this. It's been a long, I guess it's been a lot of hours working on this. I started this just after Thanksgiving, and I've pretty much been knitting on this monogamously since I started. And it is, the main challenge of it is actually just the gauge. The gauge is 27 stitches and 47 rows. That's my gauge. That's not the pattern gauge, it's my gauge. And I'm trying to knit this under a little bit of a deadline because I am taking a class with Alex Bird, and I would like to have this finished for that class, which is coming up very soon. And you may remember that this time last year I also was trying to cram a cardigan in just a month, and I didn't learn any lessons from that, and I'm doing it again this year. And maybe it's just an annual tradition for me, I don't know. And the cable pattern is 22 rows, but it's very intuitive, and after you've done a couple of repeats, I really haven't been looking at the pattern. I've just been following kind of the pattern recognition and just knitting. So it's been a pretty enjoyable pattern. I've even gotten to the point where I was knitting these cables during social knit nights, and yeah, I also steeked this during a knitting group, so I don't know if I knit this during knit night is really a measure for how easy it is, but yeah. So I am trying to, I would like to finish at least the first sleeve in the next week. I would like to even finish it before the next week is up, so that I can get the next sleeve done way before next week is up, so that I have plenty of time to do the button band, which will require me to pick up stitches. And my gauge is different. My row gauge is very different from the pattern gauge, so I'm going to probably have to recalculate the pickup rate for the button band to make sure that my button band doesn't look weird or do any wavy things or stick out at the bottom or anything like that. So so it'll be not really a challenge, but it'll be a little bit of math, I guess. I can't just follow the pattern to pick up stitches. Now that I've talked about all the fiber arts projects I've been working on, I wanted to talk a little bit about this YouTube channel and some of the things I have in mind for the channel for the next little bit. So when I first started this channel, my goal was really just to meet people and have fun. And I think that I've accomplished that. I think I've been very successful in the social aspect of this, despite I know I don't have a ton of subscribers, I don't get a ton of views on my YouTube videos, but that really isn't my measurement of success here. The measurement that I have is that I have some good relationships with you all, and I really enjoy hearing from you whenever you comment, and I can see that most of you watch a good majority of the video, and there's a lot of people. I even see that some of you have notifications turned on, which makes me feel so good that you want to be notified when my videos are uploaded. And anyway, I just think that for what I may lack in number of subscribers, I'm really happy to have an audience that enjoys my content enough to come back over and over again. And I want to keep you all happy and keep you coming back. So you may have noticed that I've started to upload more frequently, and I would really like to keep that up. Not just for you all, but also for me. I started this out being very uncomfortable talking to the camera, and I'm still fairly uncomfortable talking to the camera. I have a really hard time actually looking into the lens to talk, and I can't believe how hard it is to do that. But I have a hard time talking to the camera, and I'd like to get more comfortable with that, and the only way to do that is to keep doing it. So I want to do it more frequently so that it's not such a weird thing whenever I do it. So I'm going to post more frequently. The other thing I want to do is maybe a bigger change, because it's a change a little bit in the type of content that I'm posting. So I'll preface this by saying that I really enjoy teaching people how to spin, but you may have noticed I've never posted spinning content on here other than, the podcast episodes. I would really like to start posting some instructional spinning content, or some content where I'm actually sitting here spinning. So if any of you are learning to spin or interested in spinning content at all, I would really like to hear from you of what sorts of videos you'd like to see in that realm. I definitely will be posting the videos, but if I can, I'd like to post ones that you all will be interested in within that genre of video. Some of the ideas I've had has been to teach people how to make different types of yarn using spindles, because I feel like a lot of people don't want to spend the money on a spinning wheel when they're first starting out, and it's kind of incredible how many types of yarns you can make on a spindle. You don't have to have a spinning wheel, you don't have to have a special art yarn spinning wheel to make art yarn, and like cabled yarns and everything else. So I would really like to teach how to make different types of yarn on spindles, both to challenge myself and to show other people just what a range that simple, inexpensive tool can have. Let me know what you think of me posting more spinning content and what sorts of things you'd like to see in the future here. And that said, I really thank you for sticking around, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye.